Hey folks, Harry here. Welcome to another edition of Harry and Harbo Discuss. This week we're taking a deep dive into Classic Who. I'm finally treading my toes into the quagmire of a 26-year-long adventure. In a rather peculiar order as well, I might add. Both stories are the first serials of the third and sixth Doctors, one being a well-received classic Who serial, the other being one of the most divisive stories the show has ever had. I actually took the liberty of recording myself watching these episodes in preparation for this conversation, so if you'd like to see my reaction to both serials, you can do so by making a pledge on my Patreon page. Unfortunately, neither reaction video will ever make it to YouTube because of copyright, so they will be exclusively on Patreon forever. You can enjoy this podcast thingy of ours by either watching these two sweaty, anxious men fade in and out whilst we talk here on YouTube, or you can download the episode to listen to over on my Patreon page. Remember as well to comment below what classic serials or new Who episodes you want us to review next, and the most upvoted responses will be chosen for the next discussion. Obviously, serials and episodes we have already covered will not be considered. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the discussion. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another... Oh, I can't believe it. Feels like it's been so long, Harbo.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it?
I think we're probably just recovering from the fact that we were probably expecting the Bad Batch and Suicide Squad video to do better than it did.
Yeah, last time we're ever hopping on trends.
I know, right? But whatever, that's done and dusted. We're now caving into all of you audience members who have wanted myself to talk about Classic Who, because we are actually talking about Classic Who today. And we're going to start with...
First I want to just explain that we picked these two stories partly because obviously one's really acclaimed, one's really hated, but they do also kind of link, because... when you actually look at it, Spearhead comes off of War Games, one of the most acclaimed regeneration stories, and Twin Dilemma comes off of Case of Androzani, the other most acclaimed. So it's interesting to see how they try and pick up from such an acclaimed story before them.
Well, I have to say that after watching Spearhead, I know we're going to talk about Twin Dilemma first, but it made me want to watch War Games. Not that there was a lot really kind of
linking them.
But it was still kind of in the background as much as it would be interesting to see. So the first Colin Baker story, the Twin Dilemma.
Yeah, technically a series finale, season finale.
Yeah, that got me that threw me, because when I've signed up to BritBox, the only place I know of you can stream it. Yeah. And I have to say that they've done a decent job at kind of organizing it and keeping everything like digital, but I was looking through it trying to think like, okay, surely it's going to be the first episode of a series, but it's weirdly just kind of shunted after Peter Davison's final story.
So what they wanted to do was give people an immediate, like, first impression of the new Doctor and then let that sit for a few months. Which makes it even weirder. They thought, let's make them fucking hate him for those 9 months.
Yeah. That really was the main kind of weird point. Like that I was actually rather receptive to the idea of the Doctor having a kind of regeneration gone wrong at first. I thought that it was kind of brave of them to do this, but I was also thinking, maybe there's going to be a point in the story where they suddenly establish that the Doctor was being controlled or something like that there was a reason why he was being this way.
Or, that he shakes it off.
Yeah.
Like, and just becomes the normal kind of character we're used to, but they don't. They let it go the entire time, which would be fine if it was the first serial, and then, the next week you get him going back to normal, but they left it for 9 months. So you get the whole public perception of the Sixth Doctor is based on this one story, because they left it for almost a year.
Yeah, and I found the final bit with him just kind of looking at the camera saying, yep, this is it.
Yeah.
You better strap yourselves in.
He literally goes, I'm the Doctor, fucking deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a weird note to end the story on.
It did not, like, I'm not optimistic for watching anything else with him if he's going to be strangling his companions
That's the thing,
left,
because
right, and centre.
He doesn't do, like, he's still a bit of a dick in season 21. No, sorry, 22. But nothing ever comes close to how he's presented in this one story, which makes it just
Really?
even weirder that they left this as the last image burned into your mind for so long.
Well, it definitely has this kind of... I tell you what, I've not heard of a... I was talking to somebody else about this serial, and they said that it was the worst, like, serial of the entire Doctor Who.
It
canon.
has
He said
always
it was worse.
pretty much
Yeah,
bottom of any poll.
that's what I mean. The polls... Like, what I read about this episode on Wikipedia was that the polls that they did, the most recent one, they actually didn't put the twin dilemma into it because it's not even considered canon to them. Like, it's so surreal.
It's wild. And it's like, even from the beginning, they didn't even want to fucking make it at the beginning, right? So the person who's credited as writing it, Anthony Stephen, he didn't actually finish the story. So he wrote most of it, but then Saywards, the script editor, was like, this is a bunch of shit. And then he had to rewrite a bunch of it. And then he hated the story entirely, like, but he had to finish it anyway.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, he didn't even like Colin Baker as the Doctor. He liked the actor, he just didn't want him to be the Doctor. So everything was working against the story. And the funniest bit was, in the casting... They didn't find any twins until, like, the last minute.
What?
Yeah, so they put out a casting call for twins to play the twins, but then they didn't get anyone, and they almost gender swapped it because they had better luck finding female twins. But then literally, at the last minute, the director was approached by some random agent representing two twins, and, you know, the director fucking hated, like, the acting ability, but he had no choice, so they just put him in. So everything was going against it.
Oh, it feels that way because the fact that you've got two separate things going on, like, cutting back and forth.
Yeah.
The weird mathematical music shit, and
honestly, I was so lost in this story.
Yeah. Because they even have this weird bit right at the start where the dad is kind of saying to them, look, I know your mum's not here, but you need to respect her and you need to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like there was going to be something
more
like
to that
about the two of them. Yeah. And then they just get kidnapped and we never see that dad character again. Nothing consequential happens, like, at any point whatsoever.
Yeah,
it's all so flat.
It's so
and
boring.
Yeah, I know. And because I was thinking, as the, you know, like I said, I was kind of intrigued by the concept, and I was thinking, right, okay, let's just see kind of how it goes. And then by the time I'd finished part 2, I was just so bored, and I'm glad that I had some alcohol beforehand.
Oh yeah, I made sure
to
snack up, like, just bring a bunch of snacks, and it's like, I mean, partially part of my boredom will be, like, I could blame it on, I'm very low energy at the moment because I'm on some new antibiotics, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. But even still, I was fucking playing chess at points, like,
oh wow,
I was doing anything but paying attention because it just lost me. Like, I was just like, I don't give a shit about anything in this story.
I really found I was finding myself to feel bad for Peri. Again, a companion I know zilch about, and, like, there was even a bit where he mistook her for Tegan. Is it and that was really kind of like, I don't know whether the Doctor had like some kind of romantic entanglement
No,
with either of these women, but it just
neither.
felt like that was. Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay, well, then I completely misinterpreted that moment, because like I was under the impression that was what was kind of underlying the whole thing, but obviously that wasn't the case.
I mean, there is that one BBV like VHS called The Stranger or whatever, where Colin Baker gets naked and has sex. I think it's with the same actor that played Peri. It's like, yeah, it's a whole nother rabbit hole you need to go down, the BBV stuff. But no, so it is kind of a regeneration trend for the Doctor to mistake people for other people. So I think that's just kind of what they're leaning into. But more interestingly was John Nathan Turner wrote, like, kind of envisioned the whole story under the false belief that the Doctor always like argues with the companions after regeneration, even though that never really happened until this one story.
No, it never really affected his, as far as I understand it never affected his outlook or heroism, if you like, at all. Like, it kind of, I was really confused by how cowardly he could be as well. It was it all felt like somebody had control of him as a result of this regeneration or whatever.
It felt like they were trying to make everything the Doctor isn't. Just to kind of be like subverting expectations or whatever. But yeah, it was really weird. You mentioned feeling bad for Peri, but I also feel really bad for Nicola Bryant, because she had only recently joined the show before this.
Oh, sorry, is this the actress who plays Peri?
Peri,
okay.
yeah. So she had only recently joined the show, and so she was like, not like the veteran or whatever, but she was the one that was still there, and Colin Baker was the newbie. So she was just like, well, I'm not really well established or whatever, so I'm not gonna welcome him in and be patronising or whatever. But Colin Baker mistook that for her being aloof. So he was trying to joke around and win her over. And this is one of the things he did. This fucking baffles me, right? At one point, he bit her on the arse. He literally fucking ate her arse.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
In a deleted scene or something?
No. Not on screen
during
or whatever,
production.
but during production, yeah. He fucking bit her arse.
And that just makes John Barrowman stripping in front of everyone sound tame.
It's like, one, how the fuck do you even bite someone's ass in a non-sexual context? How do you have to be positioned to? How does that happen? And two,
where did you find? Oh, sorry, man. How do you find this stuff out?
It's so it's on. So there's a website called A Brief History of Time Travel by I think it's Shannon Sullivan, and they just collate all production notes and stuff over the years for every story.
Right.
So they've just got all interesting tidbits like this. But I will say, because obviously you mentioned John Barrowman, but the main difference is Colin Baker actually apologised, pretty straight away for doing it, and admitted, that was fucked up, that was inappropriate. And then, she forgave him, and they've been really good friends ever since. So it was a case of he fucked up, he acknowledged it, she forgave him.
Okay, I get you.
But it's still fucked up that it even happened in the first place.
Yeah.
How is that supposed to win someone over?
I don't know how they're meant to. Well, I'm under the impression they weren't trying to win audience members over at all. I really, the direction in which this story is meant to be going, and the sort of overall tone and attitude is just so baffling. It is like an upside down, topsy turvy episode of the show. I genuinely thought to myself that I must be on some kind of hallucinogenic drug.
Am I watching a fan film where they're trying to be really edgy or something?
Yeah, I don't get it. I really don't understand the point of it.
Even back then, they hated his costume.
Oh god, I hate his costume.
So Colin Baker wanted a black velvet kind of coat, but John Nathan Turner was like, "No, it's too similar to the Master." So yeah, they just Nathan Turner wanted something really garish. When he wanted people to go out of their way to design something garish, whereas everyone else was like, "I don't think that's a good idea." So
I think that so this Nathan Turner guy was who took over.
Yeah, he was technically like the first ever kind of showrunner that we consider now. Like you had you had your Hinchcliffes and your kind of faces like that, but they were always like a pairing. You had like Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes, or like Hinchcliffe and Terrence Dicks or whatever. Like you'd have multiple faces, but John Nathan Turner, he was kind of like the face. Like him specifically, less so Sayward, the script editor. So it's kind of like a more Davis Moffat kind of style, where it's like this is the guy in charge of Doctor Who.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, like he had actually been he had worked on Doctor Who since like the late '60s, I think, and
really?
just worked his way up through the ranks.
I was under the impression that he was like a new guy, like a young guy who had taken over because of Peter Davison being the youngest actor to play the role.
He was pretty young, but yeah, he had been working on there for a long time. And I think during season 16 or 17, he was like an assistant floor manager.
Right.
So he had been like a consistent place on there. But yeah, he kind of had this weird vision of going like, yeah, let's just throw everything the audience know out of the window. I want to make it Star Trek UK, basically.
Oh, right. That. I know that they had that competition anyway, which is interesting. Can I draw your attention to the the not bad guy, but the kidnapper of the twins,
the Time Lord dude.
So when the Doctor and him kind of reunite and they're like, oh, he was my mentor, is this some callback to a previous episode?
Nope.
Oh,
he's just a dude.
Oh no.
I think he may have been mentioned offhandedly once, but yeah, so he had been described in like two previous stories over like the course, one in 1972 and one in 1980.
Oh, right,
but they never really showed him or anything like that. They just mentioned an old mentor.
Because it confused the hell out of me, because when he was like, oh, I'm in charge of this planet, or I was in charge of this planet before the slug guy came along.
Fucking B-Tech Jabba the Hutt.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But I was so kind of, because of the fact that I'm used to watching a show, or the era of the show wherein which Time Lords are scarce, and I'm not used to this idea
in classic
of like
Who,
Time
they just
Lords
appear. They're just around.
That kind of is something really alien to me. And when he appeared, I was thinking, oh my god, this guy is going to have like some kind of significance, right? And yet it's so confusing as to whether he is somebody or not, because when he's dying in Colin Baker's arms, it's like, what am I? Is he supposed to be? Am I supposed to be sad about him or not? And you also have him being controlled by the slug guy in his dying moments, and that is just a joke. And
the miming was so off.
Oh yeah.
You could tell they had the dude standing there with the script off screen saying it, and this other guy trying to desperately mime it along. But it was like they barely had enough time to practice the miming. It was just like, all right, first take, go. Just try your best.
I had this horrible feeling as soon as he appeared in the first episode, and they kind of overlay a reddened slug over the top of him. I thought
he was going to turn out to be a slug himself.
And that also just confused me and didn't it just looked so horrible.
Yeah, it is. Like the production design is so bad on this.
Because I watched Spearhead first. As I was watching this, the first thing that I could think of was, how is it that an episode from 15 years prior looks better than this? And I know that they filmed it on 16mm film, and it's just so kind of strange that even with I'm assuming it was just more expensive to film with 16mm than like whatever they're using post then. But
I think it was more just like, who cares about film anymore? Videotapes the future.
Yeah,
I think it was more like that.
That's interesting, but
yeah,
it is
looks
just
awful.
crazy. The episodes, but like, well, just the production value. Like all the sets look diabolical. Whenever
Yeah.
they go to a location, it's some barren, empty,
They
boring
go to
place.
like two different quarries that are supposed to be
Yeah.
completely different locations, but you can tell it's the exact same place.
And they're only there for like 5 seconds
Yeah.
anyway. Like it's really weird.
It's so confusing. And that reminds me of the supporting character. I can't remember his name. Was it Lang? Something like that?
Oh, the police guy.
Yeah. It seemed like they were trying to position him to be a companion.
Oh, I don't even know about that. Like the whole gun shenanigans thing at the start, when like she had taken the gun, or they'd separated it. And
Oh,
she
that
was
gun
like,
looked
"Oh,
fucking atrocious.
oh,
It looked like they put Play-Doh on it.
yeah," and or like some kid's toy or a
Yeah.
water pistol or something. But like, you know, she takes it apart, or he takes it apart, and she's like, "I'll hide the power pack." Just so happens that when the guy wakes up, he goes into the costume cupboard and just happens to find the outfit that she hid it in. Would have been better if it was in her pocket. Or
I didn't even
pocket.
notice that because I wasn't paying enough. I just saw him walk into the wardrobe and I was like, "What the fuck? Is he just picking a change of clothes? Like, what's he doing here?"
Well, I seem to remember that the first part ends with him pointing the gun at them.
Oh,
right?
the cliffhangers are so bad in this whole story.
And then literally by the end of the second part, the same thing has happened,
Yeah.
except like they've just gotten back into the TARDIS, and Peri like just doesn't acknowledge that the guy is there whatsoever.
I thought it was supposed to be like because she was on like a different plane of time, but then she does acknowledge him at the beginning of the next episode. So
Yeah, that is really weird. I mean, honestly, I think it goes without saying that it both in Spearhead and this episode, like I'm not used to these cliffhangers being so abrupt.
oh yeah, the cliffhangers all across the board were terrible in both the stories we watched.
Oh, I know. It's just weird, like how you can just jump to the credits like that.
An issue with a lot of Classic Who stories was because they were so limited by the time, they just got to, like, the writer would be writing and just realize, oh shit, I've got to just put in some kind of cliffhanger here.
I've got to split it all into
so they
different
just
episodes.
do some random...
Yeah.
I think the Five Doctors suffers from that a lot because it was initially broadcast as a one long feature-length special, but then other airings split it into parts. So
What?
yeah, so they legit just go through the editor. It's just like, this is 25 minutes in, just cut there. So just they just have these really just like jarring ends to every episode. And I feel like you kind of have that here as well, where it's just like something minor happens, they go, oh no, it zooms into someone's face, and that's the end of the episode. See you next week. These were twice a week, actually, I think, when these were aired.
I was reading about the history of Classic Who on Wikipedia, and how like they changed the airing times and slots and however many episodes a week to, like, all the time. It's really weird.
Yeah, so it was like every 2 days. So there would be like, so part 1 was on the 22nd of March, part 2 was on the 23rd. Then the next week it would be 29th of March, then 30th of March. So they were just like, yeah, one day, next day, week off, one day, next day.
Oh, I thought it was like 2 episodes, like back to back kind of thing.
No.
But, all right, that's so stupid, because like, what if you can't tune in on that day? Like, you can't ritualize it at all.
Thursday,
like,
well, I mean, Classic Who, yeah, the time slots jumped around so much that it just killed off the viewers because no one knew what day it would actually be on.
Yeah.
So yeah, these ones were Thursday and Friday. And then legit, the next season went back to once weekly Saturday. And,
right.
And yeah, it just went all over the place.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I can't think of much to say about it. You can't even say it was style over substance, because it wasn't either.
Even the concept is just executed horribly.
Yeah, like there wasn't really a dilemma. It was just like,
no,
it was like, do this to create a sun to save the planet or some shit like that. I don't even know what the plan was.
they were trying to move the other two planets in the system into the orbit of the planet they were on.
Right.
But again, it was illustrated in such bizarre ways.
Yeah.
Like they had this kind of chalkboard poster thing that he was pointing at, where it's like, this is what's going to happen, and I need you mathematical geniuses to put these two planets here for us, right? But then, like later on, right in the middle of like I think part 3 or 4, I can't remember. The Doctor just pulls out this like 3D model of the system, and it doesn't help.
None of it makes
whatsoever.
any sense.
Yeah, I think if there was one bit though that I genuinely had an inkling of appreciation for was when Colin Baker, it's funny bad, but like Colin Baker just storms into this one room and goes, "Villain!" Yeah. It was so funny.
Villain! Murderer! That's a bit of a meme on my Discord. It's so random. Like,
oh yeah, and he just jumps on the guy as well. Like it's so bizarre. I thought he was gonna like drop
kick him or some shit with the way he took that running leap.
Oh my god, yeah,
it was wild.
I would love to know the inspiration for that, and I think that again that's just part of this randomized like character that Colin Baker or whoever is concocting. And I think that there could have been one redeeming factor in the entire thing. You know how the slug guy is like controlling people essentially, like or he at least has the ability to manipulate them in some way, shape, or form, as we saw with him controlling the other Time Lord. If they had turned it around in part 4 before he got melted,
of course he just fucking melts, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's really weird how like he throws one bottle and a shield stops him from
he's like, whoops, I'll just throw another,
and it somehow gets through the shield. Yeah, it's honestly bizarre. But honestly, if the slug had turned around and said, "Oh, you're wondering why you've been behaving so oddly, Doctor? It was me." Yeah, and that would have actually given him reason to just completely lash out at him. But
apart from he's just so violent and bipolar in the story, just going from suddenly like, oh yeah, I'm happy I'm the Doctor, and then he's suddenly like, oh, I want to kill everyone, or I want to be a hermit, and I'm gonna kidnap you as my disciple, Peri. And it's just like, what is going on?
Yeah,
and it just goes back to the thing, like I said earlier, it would be fine if then the next week you just carried on with the, I think it was it Attack of the Cybermen next? That would be next. And he's still a bit violent in that. He like legit just shoots Cybermen with a gun. But like, it would have made more sense because it would kind of be more of a character arc kind of thing. But it's just, I guess it's kind of like if you had Deep Breath at the end of Series 7, for example. Say you had Time of the Doctor and Deep Breath at the end of Series 7. And then everyone thought, oh well, I don't like Peter Capaldi. Like this dude's a dick. And then they left it for like a year, and then they went, oh yeah, no, it was actually character arc. People would have already made up their minds, and that's what they did with the Sixth Doctor. The writer, Anthony Stevens, I believed, he was writing very slow on the story, and he started just coming up with really random reasons for like why it was going so slow. So one of them was claiming his typewriter had literally exploded. So the dude probably didn't even want to write the story in the end. Like he didn't even want to do it. So he's like, my typewriter exploded. Get someone else to write it, please.
That's so weird.
But yes, now we can go to an actual good story.
Oh, I'm glad we got that out of the way first, man.
Yeah.
So Spearhead from Space is Jon Pertwee's first story, and it's also the first appearance of the Autons.
And the first time
dummies.
Doctor Who was ever broadcast in colour.
Yes. Can I ask, is it Unit's first appearance?
No. So
I didn't think so, because when he wakes up in bed, he's like, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, and I was like, oh, this isn't their first appearance. So when were they introduced?
So the Brigadier was introduced in the Web of Time. No, sorry, Web of Fear, not Web of Time. That was Big Finish. parallel sequel. But Web of Fear was in season 5. So that was when the Brigadier was introduced, but he was,
Right.
I think, a lieutenant or someone. He was part of the normal military. And then in season 6, because they wanted to introduce a unit ahead of season 7 and kind of maneuver that, so they brought a unit in for the invasion. And then that was their last appearance before this. So that's how he knows about the Doctor, and the Doctor knows about him and unit.
Well, yeah, I think it is just so well structured as a story. I think first and foremost, I liked how it showed unit almost in its infancy, because you have the whole like conflict between them and the actual military. But not in a very it's done quite subtly, and it builds up to that bit when the fake general comes into
forces to try and stop them.
And that was like a well placed kind of climax to the whole thing. And even though they're working out of a hospital, it was still like their presence was still felt, and it's nice that they're in their infancy.
So obviously, I know we summed up Twin Dynamo as boring, but if I had to sum up Spearhead from Space, I'd probably say something like quaint. It was just really quaint and like cozy. Like it felt like you could just, on like maybe like a winter night, you could sit up, cuddle up with a cup of cocoa and watch this Doctor Who serial, because it's just like the stakes aren't ridiculously huge. You're not on some alien planet. It's kind of like you see bits at the beginning, where Liz is in the car. It reminds me of those like police, like crime of the week detective shows from the time. It was just so terrestrial, and I think that works in its favor because obviously the Doctor gets stranded on Earth, and this was a complete genre shift for the show. So I think it manages to nail that really well, and it just makes it nice to watch.
I definitely like the exile angle. It's something that even though the budget was slashed, it still works because it's different. It's a change, and I've not like I was kind of hoping that would be what happened with Jodie's first series, but obviously that never kind of happened. But I'm honestly, man, I absolutely am in love with Jon Pertwee.
Oh, he is amazing. One thing I did pick up on during Spearhead, which I think perfectly sells the transition, is he does a lot of he does the Patrick Troughton smile. He does the Second Doctor smile a lot. Because there's this distinct, cheeky, wholesome smile that Patrick Troughton always did in his stories. And Jon Pertwee does that a couple of times in Spearhead, which shows you that, it's still the Doctor.
Well, that's interesting, because obviously you coming into it knowing the previous... Patrick Troughton is the only Doctor I've never watched a single serial of his.
Well, that's interesting, because in terms of the character, he was the one that set the blueprint for everyone else.
I've heard that, and it might be more to do with the availability of his stories, because I know that he's got a lot of missing serials, and I'm not really keen on the whole recreation, audio, stills, that kind of thing. I found watching The 10th Planet to be a bit of a chore, as much as I did enjoy it for what it was.
Did you not watch the animation version?
I don't think so. I think I watched the still images version.
I can't stand the recons, but the animations are really good. Well, I say Web of Fear 3 is terrible, but it does a good job showing the regeneration, because he has, he's acting all weird at the beginning. But the interesting thing is, for almost all of part 1, you don't actually see his face. It takes about, I think, until about maybe the 15th minute or so, about the first 10 to 15 minutes, they go out of their way to not show his face. Because
it's because of the joke, that him, looking in the mirror and going, "Oh,
well, not even that.
That's not me."
It's because the end of War Games didn't actually show who became the next Doctor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the regeneration started. You didn't actually see it finish.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's why it's so interesting at the beginning of this. You know, they hide him in a way.
Because he falls flat on his face in that bush.
Obviously, you know,
God.
the casting would have been public press and everything like that. Like, most people would have known it was Jon Pertwee. But I do like, from a narrative point of view, they kind of keep it for a little while and build to this real. So, oh yeah, this is what the Doctor looks like now.
Oh, that's so interesting. Honestly, I think he was so funny.
Oh yeah, he is delightful.
He has the comedic timing of like John Cleese or someone. He honestly just nails every bit. Like, I could just reel off the wheelchair chase, him in the doctor's room taking a shower, and you know, even in the car, him driving away. I know that's like his signature image anyway, like in the yellow car. But honestly, like, it was right at the end of part 4. They're like, no, you can't have the car. You've got to return it. And he's like, oh, we're going to have to go and find me a car. Yeah, I know. It was brilliant.
I love it.
He's so funny.
Yeah, he is instantly suited perfectly for the role.
I think he is a comedic actor anyway, but I was reading that he was like prior to Doctor Who, he was more known for comedy.
Obviously, I know he did Warsall Gromit, but I'm not sure what else he did.
I was reading that he kind of turns into a more serious, action-oriented Doctor as he goes on. But I don't know.
Oh wow! So yeah, apparently he was in 4 of the Carry On films, so that does explain it.
Ah, yes, that's where I've heard him appearing for sure.
But yeah, no, his era, he's like the man of action. You know, he ninja chops people.
Yeah.
He has what do they call it? Venusian Aikido.
Yeah,
death grips people and stuff. He's very, because it fits UNIT, because obviously they're this like military organization. He's their scientific advisor. It makes sense to kind of make him more action based, but they don't do it at the they don't make it so that it doesn't feel like the Doctor still, because he still has all those techno babble moments, the kind of mentorish role for the companion or the assistant, as they were called during this specific, like the Third Doctor era. What did you think of Liz Shaw?
Do you know, I was about to say, I think she was one of the weakest elements of the episode. Yeah, I think that they've just given her this. I like her in concept, that like she's really skeptical of aliens and everything. She's got some really great lines when she's talking to the Brigadier, like little blue men with 3 heads. You know, it's pretty good from the start. But then she is just science. Like I don't think she kind of has enough to kind of react to, and she really cuddles up to the Doctor for almost no real reason. And I'm fine with her, but I think that like the fact that she's science woman automatically makes her more of a kind of deus ex machina, like the her having that machine in her hands. It's not working. Like
the fucking hentai monster.
Honestly, I loved that though. I loved the box with the asshole like sphincter thing and then the tentacles coming out. I thought that was super creative, but please tell me I'm wrong.
No, it was fun and goofy. It was just But anyway, I think Liz Shaw, it was kind of the teething issues, because she was the first companion to be like that, like to be, or first like female companion to kind of be that independent, like professional, because before it would just be, you know, young women screaming. Obviously I know Barbara was a teacher or whatever, but she would still kind of fall into the trap of, you know, getting kidnapped, getting hurt, you know, screaming and all that. But I think Liz Shaw was the first time they were like, right, let's make kind of a, I don't want to say they went into it wanting to make her like a feminist icon or whatever, because I know they did that with Sarah Jane, but I feel like they kind of wanted to do that with Liz Shaw, but they weren't really sure how to do it.
Right.
So I think that's why she can feel weak
when it's all written by men, though, that is always what's going to happen.
They don't just quite know how to do it.
Yeah. But it's unfortunate.
I've always liked Liz, and I think she is fairly solid. She gets better throughout season 7, and I think it doesn't help that she only has that one season, so she doesn't.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
She left between season 7 and 8, I believe, because the actor was pregnant, or it was because she didn't like the way the role was going. It was one of the two.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know a lot about Pertwee's era. The only other story I watched of his, I think, is him and.
Oh god, I just saw the reason why she left. Actually, sorry to interrupt.
What was it?
So the new producer coming in thought that she was too intellectual to be a suitable companion for the Doctor, so he didn't renew her contract.
There we go. Yep. There we go. Yeah, I can't remember what episode it was. All I remember was him and a female companion. So it must have been later on in Pertwee's era, because they went to a spaceship, and that's all I can remember.
Yeah, they went to a spaceship a couple of times in the Pertwee era.
I'm sure they did.
But yeah, I don't know. I just think, I suppose it kind of drags at points, Spearhead, but overall it's just a really nice watch where like it feels homely, and like, you know, you enjoy the brig, like he's fun as always, and then you get, you know, the weird like dude hanging around the hospital, and then, you know, like the Auton guy.
Oh,
yeah. He looks really creepy, and he's just kind of...
Definitely, yeah. They make him look creepy, but as soon as he starts talking, he feels really flat and uninteresting. But that kind of goes for whenever he's conversing with his, like, doll manufacturer colleague who he's got under his influence.
Something that I noticed, so, you know, in, like, the factory... so you know, like the assistant woman who is like walking around. Well, was she supposed to be an Auton? Because I swear they made it look like her skin was kind of like yellowy and waxy, like the other Auton. But it just made it look really creepy to see people so like almost not uncanny valley, because you can tell they're people with some wax on their face. But it was just like they looked
oily skin
off. Yeah, they looked so oily, and it just looked weird and wrong.
That definitely plays to the episode's strength.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, like, I think they look scarier than the actual kind of Autons with their like, because they're obviously they can't see. They've got a full on mask on, and
I love the Auton look in this. It's so unnerving.
I think it's cool. But I think if I'd not watched Rose before, I definitely would find it a lot scarier. The fact that their hands break open, and like they've got the same sound effects as well as that is really cool.
I know, I just find it so creepy because their faces are so wonky, and obviously no eye sockets, or they've got eye sockets but no actual eyes. Like for a lot of them, they just look kind of it's just kind of creepy. It's dated in a good way.
I think that the whole them waking up in the town centre thing was partially hilarious, but also quite cool. I just wanted to see them smash glass, though. Like it, you know, they'll wake up and then they'll cut to them being outside. So obviously, you know, they just put them in the shop and then taken them out again.
That reminds me, actually, this story was very. I think it was controversial at the time because it was very.
I can imagine.
Because there was blood in this.
A lot of guns.
There was a lot of guns. There was blood, which obviously got toned down a lot. And yeah, I feel like there was more blood in this one serial than there was in most New Who.
The only thing I'm thinking of is when the driver crashed. I can't think of another time when there was blood.
He crashes. There's obviously blood on the windscreen. I mean, that alone is like, you wouldn't get that on in like Doctor Who these days. But then you also get, you know, when the Doctor gets knocked out, he has blood on his head, and other people pick up these minor injuries with like actual blood on their head and stuff like that, which is just interesting to see.
Can we also acknowledge the fact that the Doctor gets shot at the end of the first part, and it just grazed him, and he put himself into unconsciousness.
Oh god, it was so like we were saying with the cliffhangers, the ones in this are so goofy. He just crawls out of a bush, and then a bullet goes off, and suddenly he just falls over. I was like, oh no, the Doctor's dead, what the fuck? But then the next story, it's like, oh no, he's just fine.
The best one of all, though, was when the general sees his Auton come to his house, and then it just walks off screen, and that's it. Oh my god,
this is so weird.
Funny. Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed it on for the most part. I think it's definitely got a few holes, but
Of course.
I definitely think the visual kind of quality of it saves it and the
Yeah,
story itself.
obviously because it was shot on film, it looks great even now.
Yeah. I definitely enjoyed it.
It was a great start to the era.
I can imagine. That's why I'm looking forward to watching more Pertwee than I am watching more Baker.
I mean, I will say, obviously, we mentioned how this one sags a bit in the middle. All the other stories in season 7 are 7-parters.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that like traditionally long or?
Well, I mean, the longest New Who story was 12 or 13 episodes long. Dalek's Master Plan.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was mostly 6-parters in the 60s, were the longer ones. But Pertwee just goes, it's 7-parters. That's only in season 7 though. They cut it down to 6 for most of the next couple of seasons. But yeah, they're all very long.
Yeah. That was something I was kind of thinking about was you were talking about the 5 Doctors being chopped up. I want BritBox to take all of the classic Who back to the BBC and say, there are too many episodes. Stitch them together without the cliffhangers.
You say that. Okay, so there are. I believe Spearhead does have a movie version.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so there's quite a few. You get them on the collection box sets when they were broadcast, because stuff like Green Death, they were repeated a couple of years after first transmission and in an omnibus version that was cut down. So it was more 90 minutes long. Like an actual movie or something like that.
Omnibus, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, so there are already quite a few edits out there, official edits.
Yeah, and I'd have to pay a wad for them, wouldn't I? Oh well, I'll stop my grumbling and I'll be happy with my £5 a month BritBox subscription.
The Nestine, the tentacle hentai monster, a lot of people have always been critical of how the Davis era made it just a plastic CGI blob, because it's the same entity, not the exact same one, but the same Nestine consciousness.
Yeah.
Which presentation do you prefer?
I'd probably say the tentacles. Just because somebody actually crafted that, it by hand. But there is also an element of how do you get something that doesn't have a physical body onto the screen, which is made a visual medium. That it's difficult. I can imagine for them to come up with. They're both quite creative. One uses the technology of the time, and the other just goes all out on making something look really great. But it also enhances Pertwee's comedy, because his reactions when he's doing that are just amazing. But I would say overall though, Spearhead's got the better representation, just because it's handcrafted and it has
the puckering arsehole.
yeah, it's got some real love and care thrown at that.
So obviously I mentioned how it's very sort of its era. What did you think of how easily it was to break into anything?
Dude, I in my reaction video, I've made this so kind of clear. One guy gets into a room with a plank of wood.
Yeah.
And Pertwee gets into a room with I don't know what. He makes a bang and everyone goes in. I honestly don't. Yeah, I totally know what you mean. It's super convenient.
The Doctor just climbs in a car and doesn't even have to
without a key.
Yeah, because it's not got a roof, so he just gets in and then pulls the ignition and then he's off. And you get the guy getting into the factory, just climbs over a fence, then just walks in the door with the plank of wood.
I totally get that. But actually, what I just want to say, while we're on the him being taken into the factory, I really loved that montage of the dolls actually being made, it was like watching something out of a documentary. And it's kind of disturbing as well. It adds to the atmosphere a lot.
Seeing how they put the eyes in and everything, it was kind of
when they then have the conversation though, and he's like, oh, I come back here and everyone's given me the boot. It's like, okay, shut up, give me more of that documentary stuff. I don't care.
That's what I mean. It's where it's like, it's very much terrestrial police drama kind of stuff that you'd get, where it's you see a lot of bureaucracy going on in this story.
And I think that it's a shame that most, if not all, the characters have super posh accents.
It's so posh.
It's the same in the Twin Dilemma as well, though. Like, everyone has this like BBC approved accent, and I was reading about this as well, that like they're, it's they have to all sound British, and it's something that's so alien to us now.
That's why it was a big deal when they had Eccleston with his northern accent, because it was like,
oh my god,
they never had he had Eccleston with his northern accent and Rose with her London
Cockney.
Lower class accent. I don't know how to call it, like what to...
It's Cockney,
just kind of the thing, and you hadn't really had that before.
No,
because everyone just spoke so proper.
Or were an American like Peri.
Well, I mean, a terrible American accent.
In inverted commas, I suppose.
I really like Spearhead. I think it's the perfect way to introduce a Doctor and a completely new era as well.
Yeah. It has all those really good elements of, like, I'm thinking of the 11th Hour. And
you have your slow burn mysteries. Obviously, the Doctor acknowledges that you're not going to be used to this new person, and it has kind of callbacks to the last incarnation to remind you that it's just the same character at the end of the day.
And a big ugly alien boss at the end.
Yeah, some weird aliens, some creative aliens in the Autons, which are like, hey, shop dummies, let's make him a monster. And it's like, that's interesting choice to do, and it works.
Absolutely.
You even get like that farmer side story, the poacher. He's just existing. I think the whole meteorite stuff was good. Like, obviously right from the beginning it showed UNIT are just like, what are these meteorites doing?
They are just kind of the MacGuffin though. I don't think that they really are like essential, but they are like, and I totally forgot the whole poacher and his wife story, like apart from the fact that she got like home invaded and got that massive gun out. That was pretty funny. Well, I think I've pretty much said all I've got to say about it.
More specific, obviously, as we said, Jon Pertwee was incredible.
Oh and are all the episodes with the Doctor in exile with UNIT?
In season 7, yes. In season 8 as well. No, not in season 8, all but one. And then season 9, they started fucking around a lot more and going around to different places. And then season 10 was when he got the circuit back, so he could actually travel.
Oh, right. So he had 3 whole series with stuck on Earth.
Yeah, well, I mean, he wasn't stuck on Earth because the Time Lords conveniently would show up and be like, hey, there's something going on this planet. We're going to send you there.
Ooh, so that sounds quite interesting.
So like they would force him to go to another planet.
Yeah, it's sort of like I'm imagining a missionary or like a rogue character doing that, like, out of choice and not out of like obligation. That sounds very interesting. Yeah,
it was a good way to kind of get around the fact that you couldn't have loads of them set purely on Earth because people would start getting a bit bored. So it's sort of like, well, we can't use the TARDIS for a little bit longer. Just have an explanation for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard it leads that the whole Pertwee thing leads into the best Doctor ever, Tom Baker, as far as I've heard and reputations go. But I'm looking forward to watching him with Douglas Adams writing scripts. But again, I don't know if that's like, I know that there's also like a golden era part of Baker's like tenure as well.
Yeah, so that's season 12 and 13. and then
Right, okay.
everything after that is a lot more dodgy.
Ooh, dodgy.
Yeah, I mean, season 14 has highlights, and season 15 has Horror Fang Rock, which is one of the best. But then, yeah, most of like Tom Baker's later stuff is not great, which is funny because that like season 16 and 17 was when Douglas Adams was script editor.
Ah, right, okay.
Obviously,
He was just editor, but
his
like,
stories
did he
are
actually...
good,
Yeah.
but
Right.
yeah, most of that era is not very good.
That's very interesting because, like, yeah, he just has this kind of reputation to him that I've always understood from, like, anybody who I've ever spoken to about Classic Who has said that Tom Baker is, like, the best, but I don't know. I was reading that he had, like, a lot of confrontations with directors and stuff.
Obviously, he hated his co-star, Louise Jameson, for a while because she was the one to replace Liz Sladen, who was Tom Baker's really close friend after they're working together. So he was like, well, I don't want another companion. They're like, well, tough, we're going to do one. So he hated her for a bit. And yeah, and then obviously he married his co-star, Lala Ward, and they were always arguing on set during season 18, yeah. So his era has a lot of dodgy stuff behind the scenes of like just fractured relationships and like people arguing all the time, and yeah.
Wow.
I think the reason most people consider him the best Doctor is mainly just for Tom Baker's portrayal himself rather than the stories being consistently good all the way through the era.
Okay.
It's kind of like one of those David Tennant things where even in a bad 10th Doctor story, David Tennant is still always going to be the highlight.
I get it. Okay.
So yeah, it's one of those things.
Well, I think we'll call it a wrap there.
Yeah, maybe we'll even watch a Tom Baker one next.
Can you all please comment and like upvote which episodes or which serials even you want us to cover? Because we will do the top 2 thumbs ups, you know, like whatever. I've got BritBox, I can access them all, you know, it's no trouble to me whatsoever. We'll do a Boaty McBoatface here. Whoever votes, upvotes, you know. So yeah, let us know in the comments below what you would like us to cover next. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you once again, Harbo, for coming on and chatting. And I'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.